Femme Sports Channel, Selectong, The Bijir, Legends Rising, the home of empowerment in women's sports.
Hello, Ano Bazark here from Femme Sports Channel. Ano Bazark po Femme Sports Channel. Salute le gang. So let's get something started here and something running here. Lately there's been this fuss running around that Sky Sports, the British media company for sports, has portrayed really badly female sports. Thinking that female sports, it needed some glitter and some pink and some all that stuff. You know, the pink was, in my case, the pink doesn't really make me feel anything controversial out of it. But the way they were portraying it was awful, was rubbish to say the least, rubbish. So let's dive into some of the stuff that I would love to talk about. First of all, let's go back in time. History of sports. Let's first talk about the history of sports. The history. There's lots of things that we can say, The history of sports dates back to prehistoric time, with early physical activities often linked to survival skills like hunting, warfare, as well as social and spiritual traditions. The earliest recorded sports included spear throwing and wrestling, practiced far back as 70,000 BC and 70,000 BC respectively, So the ancient origins in ancient civilization, sports were used for training warriors, religious rituals, and community bonding, That is the thing, and that is part of it, I know I usually, talk about and discuss, current events with female sports and all that, but there is something that I need to address with this, and it's by far the most horrible thing ever. Really, seriously, it's far disgusting. I'm really outraged. I'm not really enjoying this whatsoever. Like, honestly, ew, yucky, yuck. This should not be a thing whatsoever. Like, honestly, let's try our best. I know it's a little difficult, but let's try our best to change the matter and the situation in hand, because that was the worst thing I could possibly have witnessed. At first I was a little bit, unaware of the situation, but once I got aware, I was like, what in the name of Davy Jones' Locker did you just do, or did Sky Sports? Wow, the biggest British company. It's like the Sky Sports, it's like the equivalent for the British people about, ESPN. And that is completely unacceptable. Utter disgusting. I hated it. And I've mentioned it on my X page, how sexist that it was and how bad it was, and that should not be the case whatsoever. So if you have anything to say, you can let me know on X or on Threads or on Instagram, anywhere you can send me a message and let me know your thoughts on what Sky Sports did with female sports. The little sis, as they were saying, Sky Sports. Ugh, that was the most disgusting thing ever, and I hope that it does not repeat whatsoever again at all. No. That was not it. So, trying to give you back some history, the ancient Greeks formalized sports with the first Olympic Games in 766 BC, which featured events such as running, boxing, wrestling, and chariot racing. And even though originally sports was a male-dominated thing for so long, it's not until recently where games like football, tennis, and other games, and basketball, and many other sports, hockey, golf, has opened up pretty big to, females. And that's something that I would love to see more often than not, but this is just not looking good, So we got a little brief of the history of sports, It dates back 70,000 BC, with prehistoric times, with like spear throwing and all that. And then from there, on the Middle Ages until now, we've seen like modernized sports. The Olympic Games, first Olympic Games were in 776 BC. And that has been how things have been going from that point and on, And I do think that sports are a wonderful thing now, because if you asked me back then, the only sport I cared about was any sort of MMA or combat sport, if you want to call it that way, or esports. But now I've opened my horizons with my journalism. I've opened my horizons to other sorts of sports than just esports and combat sports, So, in England in the late 17th and 18th century, we saw the rise of organized sports such as cricket, which led to the formation of governing bodies and standardized rules. And then the British Empire played a key role in spreading sports globally, including football, or as we know it in the western side, soccer, then cricket, rugby, hockey, through colonization and cultural exchange. So, in many shapes and forms, sports is really tied and completely hand in hand with culture. Based on your culture, it's the sport that mostly is going to be there, or maybe the sport that is really heavy there has to do something with their culture and vice versa, So that's sort of like the history of sports, Sports reflect a broader social, cultural, and political trend, serving as both entertainment and a tool for social progress. The evolution of sports is closely tied to technological advances, urbanizations, and globalizations. Back in the day, baseball was used to, showcase, there was sort of entertainment in neighborhoods, in urbanizations and stuff like that, the metro side, same with tennis. If you see a neighborhood that has a tennis court in there, ooh, you are fancy. But if you see a place that has like a basketball court, it's like, yeah, that's kind of fairly common. That's sort of like the social aspect of it, even though I don't really see it that way. As long as there is some sort of facility for sports, whether it is Olympic sports, whether it is your common sports, or anything along those lines, then I'll find it like you have commodities, So sports have remained a central part of human culture, evolving from survival practices to organized competitions that unite people across the world. That is the thing. And I will always like to showcase that as culture evolves, sports also do, because now we have this thing of empowerment in women in sports, all the empowerment that women are asking for, looking for. This is the thing that brings us to the point where we're seeing more women spotlighted in sports. We've seen that in the LPGA. We've seen that in the WNBA. We've seen that now with the football, with the American football. Everything has been, shifting to the females. I myself have been writing on a journal of, fem sports, female sports. It's been the thing that I've been doing for a year and a half. And I'm going to continue doing it, because as much as I love many other topics, as much as I love showcasing you my music, this has been my most profitable thing. And when I say profitable, I mean like I've seen the traffic, and I just want to build a big community where lots of comments come in and out, and I have a tiny small amount of loyal fans. Where I'm always, getting some feedback, Comments are what thrives me to continue doing more journalism. I like to see what the people think. I like to inform the people about what's happening in the world of female sports. And as long as I inform you, I'm happy. I'm a communication specialist, and I will always thrive for that. And I'm gonna die communicating to the people in any shape or form. So now that we have a brief overall generic sports background, let's dive it a little bit more into female sports, because female sports is something that hasn't been discussed in a more thorough way. I know that many people say, oh, if you're a female and you like sports, you're probably just a big tomboy, or you're like women or something like that. And I'm like not necessarily the case. We've seen so many heterosexuals that play in female leagues. That's a thing. No need to discuss that in any other shape or form. Even though back in the day, women, if you've seen that in the professional baseball league that we had 70 years ago, that women were using skirts and whatnot, but that's a different thing. Things have evolved. Now we see girls with trousers. It's not just skirts. They have trousers now. More common, more common. So diving into the history of female sports, which is marked by both pioneering achievements and persistent struggles for equality and recognition, women have participated in physical activities and sports throughout history. This has been something that has been happening, and it's not new. So women have participated in physical activities throughout history, but their involvement has often been rejected by social norms, gender roles, and institutional barriers. Oh, you're like women, you're a female and you do women's sports. You must have high testosterone inclined personality, or something like that. Or you're a woman. You must like women because you play basketball. That sort of thing is something that diminishes women, and we should stop that way of thinking. The physical activity that you do does not really, define your orientation, your personality. No, it defines what you love doing, what you like showcasing. And sports, more than just the athleticism, is a form of entertainment. And it's a form for some people to stay healthy. It's a form or way of life. And for other people, it's just mere entertainment, because they like seeing the game, And things representing your country, representing your place is a beautiful thing, And me as a Canadian focused writer, because I'm Puerto Rican and I'm focused on Canadian women that have played in any sports. At this point in time, I'm a little bit more focused on women's pro baseball with the Canadians and with the pro women's hockey league, or the Liga Profesional de Femmes Hockey. So hockey is a thing, and that's big in Canada, and I'm all into it, So Asian and early history with civilizations with women playing in sports. In Asian civilization, women occasionally participated in athletic events such as chariots racing in ancient Greece. Though they were often excluded from major competitions, which that is a thing that we have actually managed as a civilization, as human beings, to stop that, because we've had more involvement of women in sports. So in the 19th century to the early 20th century, social ideas of modesty limited women involvement in sports, especially in elite circles, which, again, we have actually lowered that to a degree that is unnatural, and I like that. We're all in for that, at least me, myself. So the first organized women's athletic event began to appear, such as the YWCA sponsored games in Boston in 1882. Tennis became a popular sport for women, with Maud Watson winning the first ladies' single title in Wimbledon in 1884. So in the 20th century, breakthroughs happened, Well, we saw the first Women's Olympic Games in 1922, featuring physical demanding events like shot put and the 1,000-meter dash. So moving forward to the 1930s and 1940s, we brought professional opportunities such as the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, which challenged traditional gender roles. Sure, you might be saying, oh, that only happened because all the males went to war and we were left with no males to actually play any baseball, and the Americans were yearning for more baseball, and they had to settle for having women placed in there, and sure, I can see your point, but that's not the case here. What matters is that women are back in baseball, and by that time they were playing baseball and they were as fierce as males, So Title IX, passed in the United States in 1972, was a landmark moment for gender equality in sports, dramatically increasing opportunities for women in education and athletics, So in modern era and legacy female athletes like Fanny Durock, first female Olympic swimming champion in 1912, Wilma Rudolph, 3 gold medal in 1960, and Serena Williams becoming icons, breaking barriers and inspiring generations. And now Serena Williams has bought a WNBA team, the Toronto Tempos, and that is more than amazing, because we have to showcase the Canadians, The Canadians are the major thing here, So that's the thing, and we have to always be aware that, women have been part of sports throughout history, and that's not going to change whatsoever at all. So moving a little bit more niche into my focus, which is Canadian females. Canadian women have played a significant role in the history of sports, with notable achievements in hockey, baseball, track and field, Olympic events, and much, much more. So early pioneers and team success. The first women's hockey game in Canada was played in Ottawa in 1891, which we have an Ottawa team of hockey on the PWHL. So hockey clubs existed across Quebec by the turn of the 20th century, which is where most women are when it comes to the big sports in Canada, on the Quebec side, Montreal and all that. So Edmond Grant dominated women's basketball in the 1920s and 1930s, winning hundreds of games and 4 world champions, making basketball a hugely popular women's sports in Canada. And we're seeing that now with the Women's NBA, with a new team coming in next year. So, the Sunnyside Ladies Softball League in 1930s drew larger crowds and media coverage than any other baseball or softball league in Canada at the time. And that showed some of the media and the people on the MLB that maybe Montreal wants to be part of the MLB. They tried and then extended and make it thrive, but it flopped and it failed. So that's the thing. But anyways, the Olympic breakthrough with Canadian women was made with their Olympic debut in 1924, with Cecile Smith competing in figure skating, which is a beautiful sport. So in 1928, Bobby Rosenfeld, Aileen Smith, and Merrill Cook, Jane Bell, and Ethan Catherwood became Canada's first female Olympic medalist, winning medals in track and field. Then we had Barbara Ann Scott, became Canada's first Winter Olympic champion in an individual event, figure skating in 1948. So more recently, athletes like Catriona Lee May Dwan and Cindy Klassen, Clara Huggs and Haley Wickenheiser and Penny Oleg Sykes had set records and brought home multiple Olympic medals, So in modern times, women's hockey has become a flagship sport in Canada, with the national team winning multiple Olympic gold medals and the first fully sanctioned IHF Women's World Champion held in Ottawa in 1990. And from there, we've had other sports for Canadian women with soccer, curling, rowing, swimming, and much, much more, increasing opportunities and recognition. We have right now in the LPHF, on the PWHL, we have Marie Poling. Poling is one of the best hockey players right now for the Montreal team, and in general in hockey. She's really powerful, and her style is just phenomenal. And honestly, I have to say that women in Canada have done such a big impact in sports. We can see in the Women's Pro Baseball League that many of the draftees are Canadian. And Canadian female athletes have not only achieved excellence on the field, but have also paved the way for future generations, contributing to the growth and visibility of women's sports in Canada. So all that being said, and you've been asking yourself, what does all this have to do with your disgust opinion on what Sky Sports is, the British sports media company? What are you trying to connect this? I'm trying to just show you through my niche, how women are amazing. Let's get ourselves a little bit connected here with what happened. Let me summarize you what was supposed to be the Sky Sports Halo. So the Sky Sports Halo, connecting all that amazing things I've showed you, and the way I speak about it, I'm not throwing no glitter into it. I'm not doing no matcha labubu jokes here. I'm not doing sunshines and butterflies sort of speaking. I'm just throwing you out there amazing women that have played in sports. Canadian women that have played in sports that are amazing, So let's dive in. What was the whole point of Halo for Sky Sports? Sky Sports Halo was a new TikTok channel launched in November 2025, specially aimed at female sports fans, with the goal of creating an inclusive and welcoming space for women to engage with sports content, celebrate female voices and enjoy behind the scenes insights, sports fashion, lifestyle, and live match clips, Sure. If your league like the AUSL, like the Unrivaled, like the WNBA, like many of those leagues are sponsored by Sephora, fine. You can talk about sunshines and glitter. But in reality, if we put it into the perspective that we are trying to showcase here, we can totally understand that women's sports don't need no glitter, don't need no sunshines and butterflies to be accepted, Or do you see in 100% of all male sports, you see them flexing testosterone content and stuff like that? No, you only see that kind of stuff in maybe male combat sports. You might probably see that on racing. And when I say racing, I'd say like car racing, or motorsports in general. Maybe you can see that in basketball, but that's about it, or maybe in no, you don't see that anywhere else. And that's the thing, and I don't think that women should be thrown with a lot of estrogen and show us some sunshines and glitter and make everything look more dumb, and that is so disgusting, and what's sad about it is that they opened the account 3 days later. They were so backclashed and they went down the drain. So again, let's summarize what was the point of Sky Sports Halo. So again, Sky Sports Halo was a new TikTok channel launched in November 2025, specially aimed at female sports fans, with the goal of creating an inclusive and welcoming space for women to engage with sports content, celebrate female voices and enjoy behind the scenes insight, sports fashion, lifestyle, and live match clips. The initiative was unveiled at the TikTok Awards and was set to feature live netball coverage among other sports. However, the channel faced immediate backlash for its content, which many critics describe as patronizing and not focused on actual sports, instead featuring memes and pop culture references that did not resonate with female sports fans. The criticism led Sky Sports to shut down the Halo channel just 3 days after its launch. The incident sparked broader discussion about how sports media should engage with female audiences and whether segregated platforms are effective or necessary. Sky Sport Halo was a short-lived initiative that highlighted both the demand for better representation of women in sports media and challenges of creating content that truly resonated with female fans. That's the whole dealio here. I write a journal on female sports, Canadian female sports to be exact, and you don't see me throwing sunshines and butterflies all over the place. You just see me showcasing a clip of a female sport or a female athlete doing its thing and me saying, "Oh, what amazing skills. That's amazing. I like that. Look at that goal." Or you see me type it in there on the tweet, "Oh, this is amazing. This is why I love so-and-so, because they can bring the heat to the rink." And that's literally what I do. I do the same thing that they do with male sports, but in the female side. All you got to do is grab that athlete, put it in there, and boom, you're done. You're good. You don't have to do anything else, and you don't need to just change it just because it's female. All you got to do is just grab that female athlete and just showcase their skill. Period. Simple. And that is so hard to do. Really, come on. Just sit down, relax, and think about it. Is that really so hard to do? When you see a Caitlin Clark commercial, do you see her with sunshines and butterflies? No, all you see is just literally Caitlin Clark, whether swinging a club or dribbling a ball and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I bring the heat. Gatorade. Drink it up." Period. Done. Simple. You don't see them, "Oh, I'm Caitlin Clark. Because I play in the WNBA, I need my lipstick." Lipstick. Always pretty to the game. No. That's not it. That's not literally it. Like I said, if your league is sponsored by Sephora, which we've seen countless of times, or any other makeup company, fine. You do have sections where you do showcase that. We've seen that in the AUSL. We've seen that in the Unrivaled, and so on and so forth. We've seen that where they showcase, because when you're sponsored, you're supposed to show something about your sponsor in some shape or form, whether you do it in an ad, or you do it in a flag, or you do it in a banner, or you showcase it mid-game, or you just literally make one of the athletes, the biggest one of the league, and use the product, fine. But even then, when they showcase women using the Sephora products, they don't go, "Look at me, I'm pretty." No. You see them saying, "Oh, I like this mascara. I like this lipstick. I like this foundation. I like this BB cream," and that's it. That's all they do. The same thing with male. You don't see most male flexing, "Oh, look at me. I use so and so pills to look strong." No, I use these pills. They're nice. They make me feel better, and they make me perform better in the game. Period. I don't know. I don't know how to actually like nitpick this and actually let you understand my disgustment to this. You know, that is, it's unbearable to say the least. You know, and I think that many people have struggled to understand that in many shapes and forms, and they're going to continue to struggle understanding it in many shapes and forms. But for as long as I live, that's going to be a thing. There are going to be some people that don't understand whatsoever women in sports. They think that they need to change their ways in order to showcase more females. If you look at ESPNW, for the other hand, if you look at on the other hand, ESPNW or X or my page in itself, FemSports Journal, you'll see a different whole mentality, you know. So ESPN and my page of FemSports Journal represent two distinct approaches to women's sports coverage, each on its own strength and audience focus, while Sky Sports Halo was a short-lived, controversial experiment. Yeah, that's the only thing we can call it, an experiment, because if we call that a project, that's not even like a little dabble of an experiment, you know. So that being said, let's dive into ESPNW for a moment here. So ESPNW is a dedicated platform for women's sports, offering in-depth articles, interviews, videos, and live coverages focused on female athletes and the intersection of sports and culture. We got that clear. So it hosts major events like annual ESPNW like Women Plus Sports Summits, bringing together athletes, executives, and leaders to discuss equity, leadership, and opportunity for women in sports. And the reason why ESPN has a separate account for ESPNW, it's not because they want to just spotlight women, like, in general and all that. The thing is that, you know, if they would have done that only on the ESPN account, it would have been diluted, you know. And, you know, when you're a big company like ESPN and you have so many employees that can be divided and they can cater to each different niche in a really nice way, but at the same time the main page has all those pages laid out so that you can check whichever you prefer. It's a smart idea when you're a big company, when you have such many different audiences. But if you only have like two different audiences or one, diluting or changing your content into different accounts could be of a problem if you don't have the people to actually manage each individual one. And if you don't have enough for each individual one, it's going to like just flop. Some of them are going to flop, you know. And yeah, simple. And we've seen that with ESPN, because even though people like older generations still watch ESPN, the ESPN throwback page, it's not that that big, if I say so myself, or at least in my experience. So moving on to my journal. It's a personal sports journal, right? Focused on Canadian women, you know. Right now, I'm particularly close knitted with PWHL or LPHF, of Montreal Sports with content in both English and Canadian French. Sometimes I do record some stuff here and there because I'm still learning. I'm in A1, and I don't want to just do a radio show right now here trying to speak Quebecois when I don't even have that fluency. I can read you a script and record the script with fairly no problem if it's an A1 level. Fine, I'll be okay with that. But other than that, I might have a little bit of a struggle just trying to think out of the blue. So, the approach is a grassroots, community-driven, and bilingual, aiming to connect with local fans and media, and to promote women's sports in a Canadian context, So, the content is more informal, conversational, reflecting the blogger's personal journey and engagement with the sports community, That's all I do. I'm not really trying to be the next ESPN for women. I'm not trying to do big press conferences or all that. I'm just trying to be this average Joe that has a career in journalism with a specific niche on Canadian women doing sports, right? And I'm just informing whoever stumble upon to my articles, my blogs, my tweets, my short videos, my radio show, or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just going to inform you. Or maybe have a quick chit-chat on your favorite female athlete, or your favorite female sports league. So, the thing is, when we move into what Sky Sports Halo did, the initiative was sort of there, but the approach was not. Not. Was not at all. And I'm not here to interview big sports people. No. I just want to be like a journalist kind of flow, but like an influencer, that they just talk to the people and express their love for Canadian women's sports, for Canadian sports, as we would say in Quebecois. So ESPN offers a broad professional coverage, while I provide a more bilingual, conversational, more hands-on Canadian women's sports, sort of feel. And Sky Sports Halo, what do they offered? I don't know. I'm sorry for the word I'm going to say, but they offer crap. That's what they offered. It was a big, humongous, astronomical fail attempt at female-focused sports channel on TikTok. Oh, and by the way, just because you're on TikTok doesn't mean you have to be little kid-ish and whatnot. There's plenty of people in TikTok that are not talking or focused or whatever you want to call it with little kid lingo. No. And not every woman that watches sports cares about labubus and glitter. Trust me, I know. I've been doing this for a year and a half, and it's enough for me to know that not every girl is on for the glitter and the fancy shit. I listen to a lot of the LPGA podcasts, and with just that, you can hear the level of professionalism that most women have there, and that they don't care about that. And then you go to the WNBA and you check out their press conferences, and every time they talk and they speak and all that, you can clearly hear that they care about is WNBA and rap music and being the best basketball player you can be. Period. And then they're just catering to the Gatorades and the Powerades sponsors. You barely see on those stuff sunshines and butterflies. Trust me. Trust me, that was sexist, to say the least, you know? And you can clearly see that in many shapes and forms in different places. You can look at what the PWHL is doing with their clips, and they're not showcasing at all, whatsoever, nothing. And I mean nothing about Sunshine and Butterflies. It's all just slow motion clips of people playing hockey, females in this case. You know, and then just random recordings of getting to know the players. Period. You don't see them going like, oh, look at this, Matcha, Labubu, goal score, boom, and then you see the goal and you're like, what does Matcha and Labubu have to do with the soccer and this incredible goal? I don't know. But I don't think you understand what we're trying to do here. TikTok don't mean Labubu and Sunshines and Butterflies if you're catering women. What? Does the platform change your mentality? If you would have done it on YouTube, would have been a different thing? I don't know. But that just, I don't know. I'm mind-boggled, to say the least, and I would love for you, if you're listening to this pre-recorded, once I throw it up there on the YouTubes. If you feel something about this, let me know in the comments down below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more Femsports journal content. It's unbearable. It's unbelievable. Anyways, I'll catch you on the flip side. Au revoir.